Hey Kev, let's follow this trail over here. This looks like there might be something waiting down there.
All right. Hey, wait a minute. Do you hear that?
Yeah, I thought it was just me. What the heck is that?
I don't know what that is. Whoa, do you smell that too?
That's unbelievable. Hey, look.
What the?
Hey, look, those branches are moving over there.
What the heck is that?
Holy cow, is that what I think it is? Look at that thing.
Oh my God.
It's a freaking Sasquatch. Welcome to the Bigfoot Terror in the Woods Sightings and Encounters podcast. I am your host, W.J. Sheehan, author of the series of books Bigfoot Terror in the Woods Sightings and Encounters, 12 initial volumes, and 3 additional volumes in my new regional series available at Amazon, iTunes, and Audible. The Audible book for the Pacific Northwest is not quite out there yet, but I will keep you abreast when it is. And now, may I introduce you to my brother and co-host, KJ Sheehan. Kev, how are you?
I'm doing all right, Bill. How about you?
Marvelous, marvelous. You know, I want to tell the listeners, my brother's a model enthusiast, plastic models. He likes to do detailed versions of World War II warbirds. And he just repainted his office and hung up a P-51 chasing down a German Stuka from the ceiling, and it is outrageous, Kev.
Yeah, and that Luftwaffe aircraft is no match for the P-51 Mustang.
He's ready to go down in a ball of flames.
I lean back while I'm on a Zoom call, and I can hear those 450 caliber machine guns rattling the Stuka.
Yeah, see half the wing fly off as he spirals into the freaking woods. You know, those guys, when they were escorting the bombers, once they realized they could put that extra fuel tank on the bottom, which they jettisoned once it was empty, they would leave Germany and go down and do strafing runs on railroad train, any targets they could, just to destroy something else on their way out. And I can't imagine being on the ground and having one of them badass birds rattling off on the countryside.
I mean, you can't imagine, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, the sound of those 450 calibers, 850 calibers, really, 4 on each side, going off. Like, what the heck would that sound like? I can't imagine.
Well, I'll tell you what it'll sound like, Kev, and this is going to be a surprise to you. It'll sound like standing behind the tailpipes of the 2019 Corvette Stingray I picked up.
Whoa, whoa.
You put that badass in track mode, and you sit inside of there. It's like a fireworks display.
Whoa, crazy, man.
Yeah, I'm trading up the WRX and went into the C7, the last model of the C7.
Very cool.
Yeah, so you'll get to see that.
What color?
Arctic white, black trim, and black rims.
Nice. Very cool.
460 horsepower, man. 8-speed automatic that shifts like it freaking snapping your fingers. I'm telling you, man, it is really badass.
Well, congratulations.
Yeah, I'm excited, man. I got, we'll get into the Bigfoot thing, folks. We're just having a little fun here. You know, I wanted to get that car before the WRX. I think I told you that. And I was still having some chronic back issues that, thank God, I have finally got on top of. And I also, I'm under 200 pounds now. I started at 250 and I'm at 197.
Great.
So those two combinations of things have greatly enhanced, my stature, how I'm feeling and all of that stuff. And then I said, it is time to get back to business.
Climbing in down on the ground in that Corvette, huh?
Yeah, and you know something? I guess they've been changing the design of them a little bit. It doesn't feel that bad at all now, and it's probably a combination of things getting in and out of there because it's no problem.
Yeah, a lot of that's the weight loss, too.
Yeah, I mean, it's a combo. It's a combination, that did the trick.
Yeah. Good stuff.
Yeah,
Good
really
stuff.
cool. So, bro, what do we have in our cryptids in the news and other oddities?
We got to take a deep breath here and transition from airplanes and Corvettes. Maybe close our eyes a minute and think about darkness early in 1900 and getting some creep on.
It's like a sweater. You put the creep on.
Exactly. Just pull it right over your head.
A hoodie.
Exactly. And this is one, we've had a couple of requests. Folks didn't remember that we did this one because it was a long time ago when we were first getting started. And it's one of the creepiest ones we've ever done with a lot of personal accounts of seeing this creature.
Uh-huh.
So we're going to go to Des Moines, just outside of Des Moines, Iowa, just west of Des Moines, Iowa, in fact, to a place called Van Meter. Mm-hmm. And we're going to talk about the Van Meter monster.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do recall the Van Meter, and yes, we have had some requests. So obviously, folks, everybody does not know everything that we have done, and repetition is a good thing when we're talking about creep.
Yeah, and I didn't go and dust off what I did last time. I went and did some fresh research into this critter, too. Mm-hmm. And there was a new article published in the Des Moines Register out in Des Moines, Iowa, a few years back. And they're talking about this creature that was very well covered back there in 1903. Can you imagine?
That's a long time ago, man.
That is a long time ago.
And I stand by my guns. If at that point in time, if anything got press or, they didn't have TV, so it had to be press coverage. If anything got coverage back then, unless there was a version of the National Enquirer around, they were putting it up because they wanted to get some legitimacy, some eyes on it, and see what people had to say and tell them what has been discovered.
No, and this was covered in the local newspaper, basically. And you'll hear the different witnesses, their interviews and testimonials. It's unbelievable. Mm-hmm. So first, let's talk about this critter. So it's about as big as a man, as you or I. It's got wings like a bat. And it actually looks a little bit like half dinosaur and half bat. Kind of like a bird-like leathery head with big eyes. But get this, Bill, a big horn like a unicorn sticking out of its forehead.
What the hell, man?
Oh, yeah. And it gets better than that.
Wow.
This horn that sticks out of its forehead casts a bright beam of light.
Like some type of laser beam coming out of it or something?
Beam of light coming out of it. Now, remember, folks, too, this is 1903. So it's not like they're going to mix this thing up with a Learjet or something flying over.
Yeah.
No. It did nothing in the skies, right? Mm-hmm. So let's get into a little bit. So you got a feel for it. It's like this bat-like, looks a little bit like a pterodactyl with a long horn sticking out of its head that emits a beam of light.
Wow.
I mean, really, really creepy.
Yeah, that is just unbelievably creepy, man. And can you imagine being outside and encountering this, a Bigfoot or anything else? It freaking startles you, man. It's going to punch you in the face and stop you in your tracks.
Yeah.
Wow.
Excuse me.
It's okay. God bless you.
So over a series of nights in the fall of 1903. So about this time of year, 121 years ago. Several respected and prominent men of Van Meter, Iowa, reported a half-human, half-animal with enormous smooth bat wings flying about. Get this, too. It would let off a powerful stench and scared the daylights out of them because it moved at speeds never seen before.
Jeez.
Wait, and a shot of blinding light came out of its horned head.
God, I can't even imagine.
No, I know,
visualize.
whipping around, right, with this beam of light sticking out of it, and it stinks to high heaven.
I'm telling you, Kim, that's got to be some type of demonic entity making an appearance
Exactly where
here.
I'm going.
Yeah, the smell, that's high strangeness to another level. You know what I mean?
So, Bill, if you were back there in 1903, you'd be pretty happy with these townspeople. You know why?
Because they said something.
No, because they were throwing lead at it.
Oh, I'm even happier. You got to laugh
But they
at
did
me
see
on that.
something and say something, but they also took out the iron and threw some lead at it.
I love that, man. I'll blow your horn off, bozo.
So they say that shots were fired each time. First by an implement dealer, U.G. Griffith. You like that?
Implement dealer.
As it flew across building tops in Van Meter.
Perfect.
The monster shrugged them off like a minor nuisance.
Wow.
The next night, the town doctor and bank cashier, Peter Dunn, separately saw the creature and also opened fire. Dunn even took a plaster cast of the great three-toed tracks. So the thing left a trail where it landed.
So it was on the ground and then took to the air.
Yeah, and it was on the top of buildings, too. You know, back then the buildings weren't that high, right?
Right. 1, 2 stories.
1903.
Maybe a hotel or something had 4 stories or something like that.
Exactly.
Wow.
So that's the first night. Everybody's
Okay.
throwing lead at it. 3 prominent businessmen, they come forward, they talk about it. The following night, a gentleman named O.V. White, who was also a deadeye with a gun, was awakened from his slumber in his room above the hardware store and shot at a creature that was perched atop a telephone pole.
Jeez.
This awakened Sidney Gregg, who had been sleeping in the store nearby. Gregg said the monster hopped like a kangaroo. And even the local high school teacher saw it and deemed it some sort of antediluvian monster.
Antediluvian monster. I love that.
And you know what antediluvian is? I had to look it up.
Well, it's before the Diluvian period.
Exactly, before the flood,
Yeah.
basically. So, you know, some strange thing. So
Some being from the deep, deep past.
Yeah, I had to look that up. So, folks, don't write letters talking about how ignorant I am. I'm just being honest, okay? You can write letters about how honest I am. Whenever I say I have to look something up, Bill, 10 people write in and say, how could you not know that? What are you, stupid?
Stupid idiot. You're stupid.
So, I mean, so unbelievable. You know, we're talking 4 or 5 different people see this thing over 2 nights right in town. Some of them are sleeping, so it's not like they're out drinking or smoking something funny. They're, you know, awakened by this demonic bat-like thing. Right? Bill?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Now I can, yeah.
Oh, okay. I was here. I said, yeah.
Oh, okay. I couldn't hear you.
That's all right.
Maybe my headphones cut out. But anyway, The townsmen were not averse, of course, to taking up arms, and in fact, they formed a posse back then. And to the northwest side of Van Meter, they took off near an old brickyard where this gentleman, J.L. Platt Jr., heard a noise down by the abandoned coal mine. So if you were a demonic creature, might you come out of a coal mine?
Certainly.
Yes.
Coming out of the depths of the earth, hiding in darkness.
Exactly.
You notice a lot of this stuff when we're dealing with these types of entities is all under cover of darkness.
Yes.
They come out of the dark, they live in the dark, and it's like the old Dracula story, right? They took advantage of that same theme that Dracula would come. He sits in a dark coffin, total darkness, opens the lid at night, and comes out and does his dirty work at night. It's the same theory that they were taking advantage of.
Exactly.
So this. Go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt
No,
you.
it's all good. It's all good.
Yeah. Yep.
So the quote is that from when they were there by the coal mine, presently the noise opened up again, as though Satan and a regiment of imps were coming forth for battle. And
Wow,
this
I
is
wonder-
according to the article originally published in the Des Moines Daily News on October 3rd, 1903.
I wonder what kind of noise they were hearing
Yeah, I don't know.
that preceded this thing's, arrival on the scene. What the hell was that?
Yeah, there's some great descriptions here. So the monster appeared, joined by a smaller version.
Wow.
In a brilliant light, they sailed away, only to return in the morning, where the men had gathered to rid the earth of them.
Wow. Oh my God.
Again, these are guys, you would like these guys. It says,
Yeah, well-
with their firepower heard far and wide.
Yeah. Boom, boom. They must have had a freaking posse out there by
They
that
did.
time.
They did. They brought a posse out to this old coal mine and brickyard.
And these creatures actually returned to where they were waiting
Yep.
for them.
Yep. And so get this. This is a quote. The reception they received would have sunk the Spanish fleet. But aside from unearthly noise and peculiar odor, these beings did not seem to mind it, but slowly descended the shaft of the old mine, never to be seen again.
Yeah. So this noise accompanying the two of them now was some type of host of hell, sending them off to do their dirty work. And then they returned, Look, you're not gonna take out. It doesn't matter how much lead you throw at some type of spirit being. You're not gonna kill it,
Yep.
even if it has form. Remember the old Superman movies where the freaking gangster would always walk right up to Superman with his revolver and boom, 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 and then he'd grab the pistol and bend it up like it was a
He
piece of
ended up in
Play-Doh.
his hand. Yeah.
Yeah, and then he'd always knock their heads together and they'd fall on the floor knocked out.
So they interviewed in this latest article, they interviewed a woman who's a librarian there in Van Meter, Jolena Walker. And it's interesting, her commentary. She says, those guys back then, they wouldn't have wanted that publicity, Walker said of the eyewitness accounts. When asked, was the Van Meter visitor real? She says, it depends on your belief system. I know there is good, and I know there is evil, she said. I believe there is a God, so I believe there is a demon. I'm saying it was evil.
Yeah.
No doubt, right?
Yeah, no doubt about it. You'd have to have your head buried in the sand not to think that.
Yeah. And this woman, Jolena Walker, she even drove the old gravel road out to the abandoned brick plant after talking to some of the folks that studied this. And she said, I never want to go up there again. I tell you that, she said. I tried to back up the car, and I don't know if it was loose gravel, but I couldn't get the car moving right away. I'm thinking, what is going on? I'm getting out of here. Mm-hmm. Something else, huh?
Kev, I got to tell you something, and you'll appreciate this. You know how on the search for Skinwalker,
Yeah.
our buddy always says, we're going to poke the hornet's nest.
Yeah.
And, these mining issues, which is where we get the term the Tommy knockers from, there's something to be said about going into the earth. You remember, and folks, I don't care if you're religious or not, you remember the scripture says Jesus descended into hell. My opinion is hell, the physical place of hell, is beneath the earth. So that's my opinion. I voice it as such. And when people dig and tunnel and mine, you're poking the hornet's nest, and there are probably things and entities there who are going to make their presence known and perhaps greet you as you begin to enter into their house.
I don't want that kind of greeting.
No, I don't either. But you see, it doesn't stop mankind from doing things where they start to uncover stuff that probably needed to be left alone. And I believe this is another such incident with this Van Meter monster. And look, when it went back in, it came out with another.
Yeah, little one.
Yeah, and they were listening and heard whatever they heard. It could have been 10,000. I remember when the Apostle Paul was addressing, it wasn't the Apostle Paul, it was Jesus. He was addressing the demonic man of the Gadarenes, and he said, "How many of them are you?" Speaking to who was inside of him. And the entity said, "If we were gathered together in one place, we would blot out the sun."
Ooh.
So think of how many of these creatures are in our domain, beneath us, above us, and around us, along with the good host. But they're out there and they're around there, and people are experiencing them, and sometimes people are inviting them into their world.
Don't do that, folks.
Yeah, don't do it. Remember the firecrackers on the back? It used to say, "Light fuse, run away."
Place on ground, run away.
I remember those black cat firecrackers.
Yeah.
Yeah, they
I saw
were the
somebody
best.
the other day, and they had a black cat firecracker baseball hat on.
No kidding.
Yeah, I stopped. And it had the firecracker. They'd show them broken in half with the explosion coming out. of the middle.
Yeah.
I was like, dude. I stopped him. I was like, that is the coolest hat I've ever seen. And he's like, everybody stops me about this hat. I don't even know where I got it from. I was like, okay, because that was my next question.
Well, Kev, do a search for that badass hat and see if we can't get a couple.
I should do that. But, Bill, just to wrap this one up. So super creepy story from 1903. A lot of reputable eyewitnesses. And what's interesting to me, one of the things, as you know, Bill, that frustrates me more than anything about Bigfoot is that there's so many hoaxers out there. And I think what's cool about this story is there's no way it could be a hoax, because who would put on a suit and get shot at every night?
No, you'd be dead.
Right.
Especially with the amount of lead these gentlemen were throwing down
one
range.
guy was a sharpshooter, or however they put it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, interesting, man.
Yeah.
Well, you're talking rifles and shotguns in combination. That's a melee of lead flying at you. You're not getting away from that.
Right.
That's like taking a shower in lead. So really cool, man. The Van Meter monster. And Kev, I'm glad you brought this up again, because I'll be honest with you, I had totally forgotten about it, its description, the news clippings, the whole thing.
It was a long time ago, Bill. I mean, we've done 272 of these episodes, so we've covered some creepy stories. So I don't mind going back once in a while. And again, I take a fresh look at it. I don't dust off like the notes that I had from last time. It's a fresh look.
Yeah, no, it's really awesome. And is that it for that? I'm going to
That's
jump
it,
in.
man. That's enough
All right.
creep.
Oh my God. The only thing missing from that was P-51s coming in and rattling the mine.
Yeah, that would be pretty cool, but this was 1903. The Wright brothers couldn't even buzz in.
Yeah, well, this is a very strange account, and actually coming from another country. Carl Mendelson and his friend Brad Feldman shared this next fantastic encounter with me. And this is what the two men had to say. Bill, this sighting occurred maybe 25 years ago when I was in my early 20s, Brad being about 30. Back then, neither of us was married or formally attached to anyone, which afforded us, being of like mind, to do a bit of traveling together. We did some odd things, like bicycling around Europe and attempting Himalayan mountain climbing on the smaller scale mountains. At any rate, we got around. We had been to Mexico 4 times before this trip. The best thing about going there is how far the US dollar goes. We had made our way over to Celestin, Mexico, on the advisement of some locals who told us there was a fantastic river ride to take, and we jumped on it. This older man had a boat, using it very much like the gondolas of Venice. He was standing in the back with a long oar, while we sat in front of him. This so-called river was no more than, say, 8 feet wide, if that, and it had very little current, if any at all, its surface reflecting the tree canopy that overhung it. The surface, for the most part, was like a calm pond, green and murky looking to the eye. Not clear running water, but it did not smell either, which was a good thing. The most bizarre thing about this ride, which has much to do with the Bigfoot sighting, was the shape and pattern of the tree growth along the river. Hundreds and thousands of these peculiar trees, the roots of which were exposed to the air. But not just exposed, some reaching up 8 to 10 feet or more, coming down from the trees' trunks. The trees leaning here and there at random angles both next to and over the river. So you're getting a good visualization here of the surroundings.
And where were they, Bill?
Celestin, Mexico.
Oh.
The roots formed what appeared like cages of wood, the bars of which leaned in every direction, interwoven and crisscrossing each other, running up and down the riverbank. So I'm visualizing this thing. These are like bird cages tangled together of root systems surrounding them up and down the banks of this river. Overhead, many of the trees covered the river, forming a tunnel-like effect, yet still allowing a lot of light from the sun. The backdrop of these trees and roots was that of dense green plants of various varieties, glistening in the intermittent sun's rays as they came through the canopy, forming shadows of light to the eyes. It was so quiet that I could barely hear the man paddling as we crept along silently, when I noticed a flash of brown up in a tree off to our left. We were not talking at the time, just taking it all in, the river and the light, like some crazy trip. And I tapped Brad on the leg, pointing out what I had seen. The flash of color had disappeared briefly, and then there it was again. The upper body and face of what was a small ape. Now, the boat's pilot saw it, and he started praying in Spanish, quietly calling on the Virgin Mary. He was obviously afraid. It was about 25 yards from us, moving around in a small tree, seemingly playing hide and seek with us, about 4 feet tall and, say, 150 pounds. Very stout indeed. I knew of no monkeys in Mexico, and if I was wrong, there certainly were no gorillas. Looking at the man's face, I could tell that he did not want to be there anymore. But the only way out was to continue moving forward, and he started paddling the boat harder. He was saying, "Pie grande," meaning foot big or big foot in English. We heard a grunt, followed by what sounded like a giant horse snorting, and this creature scampered out of the tree, disappearing now into the jungle below. To me, these sounds had been made by a second creature we had not seen, located in the low vegetation. Mind you, we were only 20 minutes into this boat ride as this activity had begun, and we were supposedly going for a ride for a couple of hours. Now, let me bring you, Bill, into our mindset at the time. We just saw a big ape and heard something else that sounded very large, slowly moving down a very tight river, the banks of which were 2 feet from the sides of our boat, with trees overhanging the river everywhere you looked, as though we were in a tube of branches. Anything could have quickly leapt into our boat from either side or come over the top of us in this setting. We had seen this creature in a tree next to us. Then ahead of us, the river went into a curve or bend hidden from our view, with more and more of this tree growth continuing, apparently with no end in sight when the noises started. I had just been thinking why there were no noises from any creatures here, in other words, other wildlife. Surely there must be at the very least a variety of birds and small animals in this type of dense forest. But we had heard nothing except total silence up until now. Some jabbering began between what sounded like a smaller voice and a larger one, almost sounding like a father reprimanding his child for having done something wrong, which was loud. The highs and lows in what were being vocalized were off the charts, like a mix of screaming and lower tones, just like if you've ever heard chimpanzees getting all riled up over something. And the bushes were moving around and thrashing, something moving quickly and randomly through them. And that's when we saw it. Through this maze of root systems, I knew this monster had come out of the brush, and it was looking at us. The smaller one from the tree not being visible at the time. The face was like that of a prehistoric person, say Cro-Magnon or Neanderthal, if you will. I do not even know the difference, but like a caveman. It was big and robust. The man behind us was praying loudly now, and I could tell he was escalating emotionally into a panic, which also began to affect Brad and myself. It was most definitely watching us, moving in and out of view, following us as we continued downriver. There was no escape from its gaze, and we could not just stop and run into these woods. The only way out was to continue the course. It was as large as a silverback gorilla times 2, and perhaps more enormous, covered in rusty hair and dark brown mix. The little one was no longer seen, as though Daddy had told it to stay put while he took care of the intruders. This creature flanked us for about a half hour. Who knows how far a distance, not making a sound, coming in and out of view and always staring at us when in sight. It wanted us to know it was watching us, and it looked like it was ready for a fight. Perhaps it was because of its presence that the woods was still from the start. Nothing wanting to tangle with such a formidable adversary. At times, I thought we would die at the hands of this thing and perhaps others, but thankfully that did not happen. When we finally broke free from the roots and branches, nothing else was seen of this beast, we having apparently left its domain. What we saw is anyone's guess, but the pilot had called it rather quickly, Pie Grande. What do you think of that, Kev?
Wild, man.
Freaking, can you imagine being in a tunnel of trees and branches surrounding you over your head and seeing this thing, knowing it could just dive on you or climb over you and drop on you or flip your boat in the middle of this creek or whatever? He was calling it a river, but he said it was narrow and calm.
You know, I've never heard of a Bigfoot encounter in Mexico either.
I hadn't up until this point of time either.
All right.
But research shows there is a history in Mexico of the big guy.
Yeah, and it's interesting how they talk about the fact that, you know, there's no gorillas or anything there too. So not like you're going to mistake it for something else.
And, you know, I don't know a whole heck of a lot about Mexico, but I do know that there have been encounters with what we would call a hairy man down there.
Okay.
So this was a first for me and an only to get in writing.
Good stuff, Bill. Good stuff.
Yeah, I thought you would like that.
That's a great account to compliment the Van Meter monster. How about some terrific listener mail as the cherry on top?
Sounds good, man. What do we got?
All right. Well, our first email comes in from Susie from Australia.
Yeah.
She says, "Good job, fellas. Hey, Bill and Kev, love your work. I've been with you from the beginning. Now we live in a very remote part of Australia, and it's only with Spotify that I can hear you. But I look forward each week to listening to you guys. We're in the middle of the bush of Queensland, Australia. I laugh myself silly on your attempts at Aussie words and accents. Come on, Susie. We just want to grab a schooner out of the esky and drink it on a hot day." She's laughing now. Good old schooner out of the esky.
Yeah. I'm glad to have you on board, Susie, and we're always glad when people chime in and tell us how they feel.
Yeah.
Love it. I love it. I love it. I love it.
She says, "Yowies are here too, but not worth a podcast. And UFOs too. I recommend you read The Bunny Hip of Berkeley Creek. It's a kid's book we all grew up with back in the day. Also, my Nana lived in Murray Bridge and Talem Bend on the Murray River when we were little, and they had a bunny hip on the riverbank." Oh, and she says they had a bunny hip on the riverbank that you put 20 cents in, and the bunny hip would come to the front of the cage in a kind of cave thing and roar at us with glowing red eyes. That sounds awesome. We can all imagine that.
So this must have been some type of animated.
Yeah, like the
bunny
little
hip.
horses you rode in the supermarket and stuff like that. That's what it sounds like.
Yeah, you put a quarter in, the thing comes over and terrifies your kids. What could be better than that?
Yeah, I mean, come on, red eyes in a cage. It's fantastic. Do it again. Do it again.
Mom, you have another quarter? Hey, you little creep, I just put $5 in here. Shut up.
And Susie finishes up by saying, "Take care and have a good one. Cheers from Susie and everyone down here in Australia."
Excellent, excellent, man.
Thanks for writing in, Susie. Good Good stuff.
Put a quarter in the bunyip.
The bunny up in the cage. Come on.
What else you got,
All
Kevin?
right. And Michael writes in on the Whitehall Sasquatch Festival, one of my favorite accounts up in Whitehall, New York. Mm-hmm. He says, "Hi, guys. I just returned from the Whitehall Sasquatch Festival that I attended with a couple of good buddies and our daughters for the second year in a row. It was a fantastic time again, and we got to meet all of the familiar New York area researchers and authors. It was extremely well organized, and they had lots of squatchy information. We even took a drive out to the famous Aber Road to check it out. It might be worth it for you guys to check out this event in the future or even participate. I know it's a ways away for both of you, especially KJ, but it's a great event." And by the way, Michael, I have been up there to Whitehall, and I have driven out to Aber Road. I haven't been there for the festival, so I will put that on the to-do list here. But it's not hard to believe. Like, I was out there at sunset on a weeknight driving around. It's not hard to believe that there was a Bigfoot sighting there. Very
no
quiet
doubt.
place.
Yeah, no doubt about it, Kev. Plenty of wilderness, plenty of woods, plenty of food. Everything is set as far as the table goes.
Yeah, and then Michael transitions here. He says, "On another note, I am a huge hockey fan, and I have a friend who lives in North Carolina and has Hurricane season tickets. Go Canes." He didn't say that, but I did.
Go Canes.
Ironically, as a New York resident, I'm not a fan of any of the New York teams. Maybe the Islanders a little. That's okay, as long as you're not a Ranger fan. But an Ottawa Sens fan. Oh, right, you're a Sens fan. That's a tough job, being a Sens fan. I live near Binghamton, New York, but travel up to many games each season. Keep up the good work. Thanks, Michael. And tell your Hurricane hockey fan friend that I said hi, and I probably see him at the game. We had a good game the other night, Bill. We beat the Boston Bruins 8-2. It was the most goals I think I've ever seen in a hockey game.
Wow.
It was unbelievable.
8-2, man.
8-2.
That's a hammering.
It was a hammering. So thanks, Michael, for the story and the info about the Whitehall Sasquatch Festival. And that's it, Bill. Good podcast this week. Folks, I want to encourage you, if you're listening and you like what you hear, go give us 5-star review, and it really helps us bring new listeners to the podcast. And if you're listening and you don't like us, just move on.
Yeah. Yeah, I get it, I mean, we're not for everybody. No television show, no podcast is for everybody, But we're doing what we do, and we're doing our damn best to keep it moving and interesting. And we do have a nice audience, so we appreciate you guys. And remember, if you've seen something, say something. Contact us at BigfootTerrorInTheWoods.com. Just hit the contact button and leave your name and number, and I will reach out to you. And if you don't hear from me, do it again, because I'm really busy, and it's not that I'm ignoring you or I've thrown your email in the garbage. I'm working like a one-arm wallpaper hanger over here. So stay with us, keep listening, and remember, you should find yourself on a river ride in Celestin, Mexico, or walking through the forest in Whitehall, New York. You best remember one thing, my friends. Always carry more gun than you think you're going to need. Sleep tight.